In this video, we're going to be giving you 4 warm-up exercises and drills you can easily do before your surfs to reduce your feelings of being locked up and stiff or just in pain and struggling through your pop-up or paddling. I'm Considine, a physiotherapist, coach, and a competitive surfer. I've been helping surfers overcome surfing and movement-related complaints for a while now, and in my experience, it's clear how effective a good warm-up can be. But there are some things I see out there which are a little too fancy for my liking, which may overpromise and underdeliver. This is so much of what's out there these days, but we can do 95% of what will yield the best results by adhering to sound, up-to-date, evidence-based principles to get you in the best physical preparation for your surfing. So let's get into that right now. So our first exercise is going to be our walking lunges. Now, walking lunges are honestly one of the best and most valuable movements when it comes to a surf-specific warm-up, because we're getting activation through all the major lower limb muscles we care about for our surfing, these being our glutes, quads, hamstrings, calves, and even your lower back is working to keep this one in control. All of these play a key role when we're paddling, popping up, and surfing in general, especially the glutes, which a lot of us don't pay enough time and attention to. If they're not strong or activating to help out, your lower back is just going to pick up the slack, and that's where a lot of surfers run into either tightness or pain after paddling out. So here's how we do it. Start by standing tall, feet hip width apart, posture upright. From here, you're going to take a large step forwards with your right foot. As you land, drop your back knee down toward the ground in a very controlled way, not crashing down quick, and keeping 90% of your weight over the front leg. This is important. Once we're low, we now want to press through the midfoot and heel of that front foot to rise up and step all the way through with the back leg. So now you're lunging forwards with that left side. We then repeat this in a smooth and alternating rhythm, ensuring that on the way down, we're nice and slow and in control. The key cues here to remember are: maintain a proud chest, staying long and tall through the spine, keep your gaze forwards, and ensure the front knee tracks directly over the second toe. No wobble and no collapse. That second toe tracking is critical. If your knee dives inwards, what we call a dynamic knee valgus, that's putting extra stress through the medial knee and it can mess with your stability. The common mistakes to avoid here are letting the chest fall forward and turning it into more of a hinge. We're not doing deadlifts here, and we want to optimize for good knee bend in a controlled way. Taking small steps that don't engage the glutes fully by reducing their stretch or not allowing for much depth, and rushing through or losing balance. Steadiness is key here. To make it easier, we can also reduce our depth, so we're only going halfway, which if we're unsure with this one, or we're finding that the control of the knee and the hip stability is difficult, we can go halfway to start until we get better control. To make it harder, take bigger steps, which will lead to better glute and hamstring engagement. We can slow down the tempo, especially on the lower phase. More time under tension equals more activation. And for our reps and sets recommendations, complete 2 rounds of 12 steps forwards and 12 steps back. Try to make each step intentional, stable, and controlled. As you'll keep hearing me say, sticking to the fundamentals and the simple stuff, it really works. Walking lunges like this actually just help us hit so much of what we actually need. And the same goes for improving our surfing as well. It's easy to get lost chasing shiny new tips and tricks or random drills without really knowing how they fit together, but the real progression comes when you have a clear structure, knowing exactly where you're at, what's missing, and what's the next thing to work on. If you are interested, we've put together 5 free surf progression maps covering everything from the absolute beginner levels all the way through to advanced and competitive. They'll help you to figure out where you're currently at, what gaps you have, and what to focus on to keep progressing. And you can grab those now for free at longboardsessions.com, and I'll link those down below. Once we've got the legs and glutes firing, we want to unlock the spine, especially through the lumbar and the thoracic regions, where a lot of stiffness does tend to build up from sitting, poor mobility, or even just surfing itself. This next one is a spinal wave flow, moving between Cobra and Child's Pose. This isn't an ultra fancy yoga flow. This is an easier, more accessible surfer-specific movement that opens up the front and back of the body. We're targeting anterior and posterior pelvic tilting, which is crucial for dynamic pop-ups and paddling efficiency. We're also getting that segmental spinal movement, little micro adjustments between each vertebrae, which is exactly what we want to reduce that stiff, stuck feeling. Lie face down, hands just beneath your shoulders. Press your hands firmly into the ground and slowly lift your chest upward. Keep your hips grounded, that's key, we're not doing a plank here. And we want a nice even arch through the spine, not just lifting the hips up and keeping the lower back flat. Once you're in Cobra, hold for a breath or 2, then slowly start shifting your hips back towards your heels, sliding into Child's Pose. For this, we want to see your arms reaching long in front of you, Forehead resting toward or on the ground. Bottom as close to the heels as you can manage, and think of lengthening through the lats and creating space through the spine. Then begin to wave your way forward again, sliding the chest through the hands and returning to Cobra. You're flowing between these two shapes, gradually increasing range and ease with each rep. The key cues to focus on here are keep the movement fluid. Think of your spine as a wave rolling from one position to the next, but that's easier said than done, don't worry. Don't rush it either. We're not trying to maximize reps here, we're just feeling how we're moving through these positions. Common mistakes can include lifting the hips in Cobra, and this turns it into a pseudo plank, not reaching far enough in child's pose, which limits the lat and shoulder opening, and holding your breath. Try to inhale as you lift into Cobra and exhale as you sink back into child's pose. To make this one easier, we can decrease the range by not pushing as high and far into Cobra. We can also place a pillow underneath the hips if child's pose is uncomfortable, although understandably this is maybe not accessible at the beach. To make it harder, we can pause longer at each end, and we can try and articulate through the spine more slowly as we move from one to the next. More segments equals more control. Keep this going for 1 to 2 minutes of continuous flow, and don't count the reps here, we just want to move with control and rhythm. All right, now let's get into some dynamic flexibility. This is something we have to talk about because passive stretching before surfing isn't going to optimize what we need in the water. The research is actually super clear here. Static stretches before activity or sport doesn't reduce risk, and they can actually reduce strength output in the short term, which is why we may see an increased risk of injury and reduced performance from these. Not what we want before we're going into an activity like surfing. Instead, we go dynamic, and one of the simplest but most effective movements in this category is the dynamic leg swing. This movement is something you might have seen from your favorite athletes in other sports such as footy, basketball, and so on, and it involves some great hip flexion and extension, increased hamstring length, glute activation, hip joint mobility, and even a bit of lower back work. To do this one, grab onto a wall or a post, or balance freely if you've got the control. Start with small kicks. Forwards like you're gently going to kick a soccer ball, and then backwards with a controlled swing with the heel. The goal here is to gradually build range, but don't start by trying to kick your face. Ease into it and increase the amplitude as your body warms up. My favorite cues here are to keep the torso upright, no leaning forward as you kick back or leaning backward as you kick forwards to fake the range. Keep the kicking leg as straight as possible and actively try to tense or squeeze the glute at the top of the backswing as well. The common mistakes here can be bending the knee too much and losing that stretch in the forwards movement, swinging so hard that you lose control or balance, and then also arching the back to compensate. This should be hip driven, not involving the spine. An optional variation to this one is also to add side to side swings. We do this by bringing the leg across the body and out like a pendulum. This warms up the adductors and abductors, but this shouldn't replace the initial movement, which is more important here. We can do this for 20 swings, forwards and backwards on each leg. To make it easier, keep the range small and the movement slower, and also remember to hold on to something stable. And to make it harder, we can increase the range and speed, but only if our control and our feeling of the exercise is really solid. All right, now this one is probably the most important for surfers, especially those who may be struggling with a slow or sticky pop-up, and this is our parallel pop-through, which directly mimics the explosive motion of getting to our feet. What we're doing here is we're building our neuromuscular coordination, speed, and body awareness without loading the system too much before we get in the water. So by the time you hit the water, you kind of already know what's coming. So for this one, we want to start in a push-up or a tall plank position, hands under shoulders, core tight, glutes engaged, and the toes tucked into the ground. From here, we want to jump both feet forward, aiming to land them as close to underneath the chest as you can. Think of it as half a burpee, but your feet land parallel with each other. Then back to plank, reset, and repeat. The best cues here are to firstly press from the toes, they're going to be your launching pad, and land softly with the knees bent and looking forwards. The common mistake here can be dropping the hips too low in plank and losing that straight spine position. To make this one easier, we can reduce the range and just land a little bit shorter, and to make it harder, we can add more reps or increase speed whilst of course maintaining good quality movement. We can also pause and hold in that plank position for a second or two to work the core and the arms in that static position. This one will vary regarding rep ranges depending on the person doing it, but we can go anywhere from 6 to 15 reps depending on how you're feeling. enough to activate, but not too much so that we fatigue. This is such an underutilized tool, but if you get in the habit of doing this before every surf, you'll start to feel way more crisp and confident in that critical first and second wave of the session. If you have any questions about this, or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear your suggestions and everything like that down below in the comments. And there should be a video popping up somewhere here, which will actually teach you how to get into waves most efficiently, breaking it down into 2 different phases. So I hope you enjoyed that one, but otherwise we'll catch you on the next edit.